Next guest is a young man out here making a whole lot of noise in Queens. He's an activist, organizer, and he's also the presumptive Democratic nominee for New York State Assembly, District 31. Welcome to Cocktails and Convo, Mr. Khalil Anderson. Mr. Anderson, thank you so much for joining the show.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Know you're busy out here hustling in these streets. But let us start with a toast.
All right.
Let us start with a toast of black excellence. Young black king doing his thing out here in Queens.
All right.
Thank you. And let's jump right in. So, the presumptive nominee.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And also,
I'm also the male state committee man for the 31st Assembly.
okay. So doing big things. So
Yes.
what made you even get into politics? Young.
Yeah, well, my mom was an organizer with Acorn, and my father was an organizer with 1199 Union. So organizing is kind of in my family blood.
Okay.
And just seeing that issues are not being resolved by the powers that be really kind of led me into this path of really just trying to be an organizer, an activist, someone who's focused on addressing the day-to-day issues that young people and people in general are faced with. So,
And we need that. We need young people like you out here fighting for, our young people as well. So Southeast Queens and Rockaway, what's going on?
That's right. Well, we've got a lot of issues: education, politics, housing, transportation, you name it. The three things that we focused on in our campaign was environmental racism, transportation, and education. In this district, just pivoting to education first, in this district, our 19 schools are owed nearly $10 million
Absolutely.
in campaign for fiscal equity funds, that stem from a early 90s lawsuit that said that black and brown schools have been systemically underfunded. And that's the money we're looking to fight for once we get to Albany. As an activist and one of the founding members of the Rockaway Youth Task Force right here in the Rockaways, we've been fighting vigorously to ensure that money comes back to this district.
Absolutely.
And more education reforms in that sense as well. So I'll get into it more.
Please, yeah, and the Rockaway Task Force, Rockaway Youth Task Force is definitely making noise out here in the Rockaway. So your affiliation with them is?
I'm one of the founding members.
Okay.
I also, from 2017 to 2019, I served as a board of director for the nonprofit.
Awesome,
Yep.
awesome. So let's say everything goes as planned,
Mm-hmm.
and you win the seat, District 31. What's next?
Well, we've got a lot of work to do. In my opinion, the seat could have been a lot more active around the issues of transportation, education, and environmental racism. We live in a district that is geographically isolated and segmented into three parts. We live in a district where airplanes are flying over our homes constantly. We didn't see this in Suffolk County. We didn't see this in Nassau County. I'm very clear on that this is environmental racism. We live in a community where we have massive amounts of land that is unoccupied or unused that could be used to put folks to work in urban agriculture, could be used to put folks to work in the space of gardening and really just trying to bring back our roots of controlling the food systems that exist here in Southeast Queens and all across the state of New York. We just faced a food insecurity crisis, as it relates to COVID-19 and what we went through COVID-19. Seniors couldn't get out to get food. Folks were quarantined, so they really didn't have access.
Right.
So, and this is not the first time we faced a food insecurity crisis. We faced another food insecurity crisis after Sandy. This time around, we had electricity. Last time around, we didn't. And it just seemed like this is something that's perpetuating so much. So the best way to fight and resolve food insecurity is for us to take back control of our lands here in Southeast Queens and grow it ourselves. And it's very doable, as we did on Beach 58th Street, building a full acre urban farm.
Yes.
So that, one, young people are getting employment opportunities, but also seniors and folks in the community are getting an opportunity to grow and be one within the earth.
And there's so much space if you ride down Edgebeard, space, unoccupied space that could be used for that as well as other things. So that's great work too. And of course we want to provide job opportunities for
and educational opportunities too. Because you can teach so much. You can teach composting. You can teach soil toiling. These are skills that our young people can leave the public education system with and take with them into the real world.
And even in reference to education, when I ride by all that space too, I even think about why can't we have a satellite campus of some sort out here in Rockaways, right? I mean, granted, you have schools in Southeast Queens.
Right.
You have schools over there, but in the Rockaway area, we talk about college and career readiness, and we talk about access, but we know that there's limited access over on certain aspects of the peninsula. So I'm glad that you're working toward that as well.
I'm a CUNY graduate, two-time CUNY graduate. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in urban studies and my master's degree in urban affairs. And it was a dual degree program. I went through the SEEK program, which is an equal opportunity program that really helps young people who are either low income or academically disadvantaged really go through the school, go through college, pay for books and things of that nature. The program is really helpful in that. But one thing that's very pressing about the issues as it relates to education, higher education in the Rockaways, is we don't have a college. Our nearest college is 2 hours away by bus, by public transportation, right? Hour and a half, 2 hours. And we have among the lowest college attainment rate in the city at just 23%, just for my assembly. And the answer is access. And one of the things that's hurtful for me is, like, as I've been on the campaign trail and learning more about the issues and the constituents and what they have been asking for, is that there was a college actually slated for the Rockaways in the early 2000s. The CUNY by the Sea proposal was a plan to turn the old courthouse on 92nd Street into a marine biology type of college environment where young people can get college credit. I believe it was a 2-year school, and the proposal did get funding, but then it just disappeared. And that was our only shot and opportunity at getting college here in the Rockaways, right on 92nd Street, the courthouse. And like that would have changed generations of the lives of young people in this district. And we want to fight to see how we can renew and dust off that proposal.
Sometimes the motivation is simply seeing it.
Right.
Just simply seeing it.
Right.
And I'm going to go there. Just the fact of young black men seeing you and the work that you're doing right now. I'm working to uplift the community, right? That's motivation for a young person of color. Say, you know what? I see Khalil. I aspire to do that as well. But, don't talk to me about college if I can't see college, if I can't put my hands on it and grab it and walk around the campus. Yeah, I can Google. There's technology and all that. However, we need to see it. We need to touch it. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So we want to look at ways we can dust off that proposal and really provide the higher education institution that our young people need in this community. Just as you said, seeing it and seeing that they can attain it and achieve it really will help boost the morale, will help boost self-esteem, will help boost their ability to achieve and gain the possibility of going to higher education. And if we're not going towards the path of higher education, let's look at ways we can build skills within these young people in their high schools and in their middle schools so that at least when they leave, they have a marketable skill that they can use in the real world.
Absolutely. So we're going to continue that conversation, but I want us to cut right now and go to the segment The People Want to Know. We'll be right back with that segment. So we are back. The People Want to Know segment. We're just going to take questions from people all around and do our best to answer those questions. So Jason from Pennsylvania wants to know, what's up with Kanye running for president?
Well, to start, I think there's about 7 to 10 states he can't even qualify to be on the ballot with, including New York. He just missed the deadline to be on the ballot for New York. We voted for president 2 weeks ago. Democratic nominee and independent nominee, I think, also passed. So I don't know if it's more so for just to sell his album because he
trolling purposes.
Yeah, I'm not taking it seriously.
Yeah, I don't think, and I'm not taking anything away from Kanye's production ability or his artistic ability, but the statement when he said slavery was a choice,
right?
Just it doesn't sit with me the right way. And when I think of Kanye, I think of him saying slavery was a choice. Right. And I can't separate it. So
right.
I'm looking at him in a completely different light now. Right. So Jason from PA, we're not really feeling Kanye running for president. So Tamika from Queens wants to know, what can we do to get the violence to stop?
Absolutely. I think in this moment, let's just ensure that we're having two discussions in this moment. We're having a discussion about police violence against our people that often goes unpunished. And then the other discussion we're having is crime that exists in our neighborhoods, whether it's gun violence, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's robbery or things like those are two separate discussions. So I wanted to have them exclusive from each other, right? Because when we mix the two, we take away from the discussion of police officers not being prosecuted or not being held accountable, right? But the question that she's asking is about violence that happens in our communities, and there's so much. I come from a social science background, so there's so much, context behind why violence happens in predominantly low-income communities. There's lack of resources, there's lack of direction, there's lack of programs, things to channel the young people or middle-aged people. Employment opportunities are all connected to high rates of crime. So the best way to stop it is to look at ways of dealing with the root cause, right? You can arrest, but you can't arrest your way out of this problem. You can't jail your way out of this problem. It's a resource problem. We need to make sure that fathers have the resources that they need to be the best fathers they can be. We need to make sure that single mothers have the resources that they need to be the best single mothers they can be. And of course, young people, making sure that every young person has an after-school program, or they're in a trade program, or they're doing something to keep themselves focused. As a young person, and just going back into my history and getting a little personal, I was a troubled young person. I'd get into fights, I'd mess up things, I'd get into arguments with teachers. I lacked direction. And one of the things that helped me get back on direction was male mentors, people in my life that helped me along the way, that tutored me, that coached me, that mentored me, that gave me haircuts, that gave me clothes, told me to shape up, told me to wear my clothes right, and really stayed on top of me. And I think that's what our young males need. As I also was a student within the District 75 system, so I had self-contained classrooms with a lot of young people who suffered with the same issues, right. And because they didn't have that direction and leadership, they either ended up in gangs, teen pregnancy, or killed, right? And that's the unfortunate path for our young people if we don't get the resources that we need for these young people. There's no reason why that a school system with 1.1 million young people with a budget of $88 billion, that every single student is not in an after-school program, that every single student is not doing something productive with their lives, not just during the summertime when we see crimes spike, but also during the school year, so we can limit some of that. There's no reason why that every school in the 31st Assembly District and beyond doesn't have conflict resolution, right? Derek gets into an argument with Taekwon at the school, and that argument boils over into the streets in front of the school, and then it boils over into the corner store, and then it never stops because it's a tit for tat. No one does one-on-ones anymore where when you fight and then it's over.
Those interventions matter.
Right.
Interventions matter,
and you need that.
Absolutely need. And that point you brought up around mentorship, you wouldn't be where you were without mentorship.
Absolutely,
and I can tell you that I wouldn't be where I am without mentorship. And it's not just at one point. Granted, if you're lucky enough to have someone who's pouring into you in middle school, if you're lucky enough to get someone pouring into you in high school, college. I remember a short story. I was a substitute teacher, still trying to find my way through young adulthood. Nice. Yeah. I'm a substitute teacher in an elementary school, and the principal, he reminded me of James Earl Jones. His name was Cecil Wilson. And he came out of his office, and he looks at me, says, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Sean, I'm just here substituting in your school. When you're done at the end of the day, come to my office." And I'm like, damn, I didn't even start the day yet. I'm already in trouble. Yeah. So I go into his office. At the end of the day, he's sitting behind his desk in his stature. He's looking fresh. And he says, "Why are you substituting at my school?" I didn't know how to answer his question. I said, "Well, the substitute line called me, told me you needed a substitute, so I came in to substitute." Yeah. "Did you go to college?" "Yes, I went to college, sir." "Did you graduate from college?" "Yes, I graduated from college, sir." "So why are you a substitute teacher in my school?" And I couldn't answer his question, but after reflecting, he was pushing me to create a plan for my life. He said, "Come back every day this week, meet me in my office at the end of the day so we can create a 5-year plan for you." I will never forget that man. He didn't know me from a can of paint, but he saw something in me. He saw the need to pour into a young, lost black man. And I know that his guidance at that time was just what I needed to move forward through whatever my trajectory was. So that mentorship piece really resonates with me because I believe that so many of our young black and brown boys and girls could benefit from having a positive mentor role model in their life.
Absolutely. And you know, your experience, my experience, these are not exclusive. This is the reality for a lot of our young people in these communities. And we've got to make sure that programs exist and are created and are funded so that we can make sure that young people, black males in particular, who are more susceptible, you know, to the life that Tamika spoke about, can be, you know, mentored and properly coached and pushed in the right direction. I can't begin to tell you where I would be if I didn't have Mr. Keith, who was one of my mentors. He lived out here or lives out here in the 40s. Or you know, any one of the other teachers that just really pushed me hard because they saw something in me, but not just seeing something in a young person, but also understanding that they can be something if we invest in them. And we've got to go back to investing in our young people.
Tamika, you heard it from Khalil. Resources and investing in our young people. One more. So Kayla from Brooklyn wants to know, who will be the next New York City mayor?
Ooh, that's a tight one. I'm not sure, but I definitely know that whomever the next mayor is, they have to have a laser focus on police reform. They've got to have a laser focus on making sure summer youth can't be cut again from the budget. This is one of the essential programs that keeps crime down in our communities because it keeps young people focused and keeps money in their pocket and resources for their families. So whoever the mayor is, they need to focus on that. But they also need to focus on building a better transportation network for this city, and the state. For this city. I think it's vitally important that we're able to get around the world's largest city. And folks who live in my district that I'm running to represent have transportation that actually makes sense and works. Why is it that young people who live on the eastern end of the peninsula and go to school at Beach Channel or Channelview or Scholars Academy have to take 45 minutes to an hour to get to school every morning when there's a train that could take you in 12 minutes? The H train that used to exist. So like these are the things that don't make sense and exist in our neighborhoods. And if we have a mayor that's super intentional about solving these issues, that's someone I can get behind. But there's some
we definitely have a candidate who has some experience with the police. So but who knows how it's going to turn out, and we're definitely looking forward to see and that whoever that person is has to absolutely focus on police reform, has to absolutely focus on transportation, has to absolutely focus on housing and all of those important issues that are still issues in our communities.
Absolutely.
So if you were going to tell the people one thing before we wrap up our cocktails and conversation, what would it be?
Well, I think the biggest thing that folks need to leave this discussion with is that young people really deserve to have leadership. Young people deserve to be seated at the table because we are setting the stage for future generations. We are creating and should be in the position to create a better life, not just for ourselves, but our folks who came before us and the folks who are going to come after us. So we need to make sure that we are in positions of power and positions of leadership, that we're trusted to do these things here, and that we're empowered to do these things here, right? One of the things that, one of the more memorable moments of the campaign was that when I was in Rosedale. And I was in Rosedale, I was hanging up flyers, social distance, everything, trying to keep my distance and everything. But I saw this group of young people who just came out of the grocery store. And they saw my poster on, the little ice machines that stand outside, little freezers. And they saw my poster. And they said, I was wondering who's that guy, because they never seen a black male on a poster. And it's a pretty big poster, 18 by 24 poster.
Now you bragging.
And, got to know the specs. And they were asking, who is this guy? And, as we're hanging up posters, we're giving out flyers and stuff. I said, let me just stop and talk to them. And I stopped and talked to them and they said, that's you. I was like, yeah, that is me, but that's also you, right? That's also me laying the groundwork, laying the pavement for you to become the next leaders, doctors, lawyers, business owners, plumbers, specialists, and pushing you to understand that just because I'm 23 or 24 or I'm 12 or 7 doesn't mean I can't lead, doesn't mean I can't be a doctor, doesn't mean that my zip code what public housing development I live in determines my future, or determines the direction that my life goes in. It means that we have to break through the barriers that have kept us chained down to these norms.
Absolutely.
Break those chains and bring back something home to these neighborhoods. And I call them kings, I call them queens. I told them that this is their moment. Whether I win or lose in that moment, I was speaking to them, we did this for them so that they can understand that they have a future at this. And they can win.
Shout out to the kids who see you and are motivated to do more.
Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck along this journey.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,
All right.
Khalil Anderson, Cocktails and Convo.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Cocktails and Convo.